Alrighty, disclaimer. All the content that you're about to consume is not investment advice. Do not take this as any form of advice, tax, legal, accounting, or any kind of advice at all. Anything that you click, especially even if it's a cross-chain routed message to any chain around the world, that is the button you are clicking and you are responsible for any losses that you have or may incur. Alrighty, let's go. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Byte Show, everyone. This week has been an interesting week in crypto, but I'd love to get the conversation tailored into a little bit more of a productive direction other than just Pepe or meme coins. But right now, we've got Colton joining us, the founder of Prime Protocol, building a really unique use case of an actually cross-chain, first time that a cross-chain brokerage has kind of hit the scene with the mainnet actually live this week. Colton, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Joseph. It's great to be here. Super excited to chat about what we just shipped and what's coming next.
Cool. Well, it has been an exciting week. I think it was just yesterday I was messaging someone and I was like, what a day you have where at the beginning of the day, it's like everybody's scalping meme coins. And then Elon tweets him a lady. And then like, there's like some kind of Fed news. And then somebody said that the government was selling Bitcoin all in one day. It all in like a cup of tea. This crazy thing just happened. So
and it turns out they weren't selling Bitcoin after all.
Right. So just just a little bit of excitement, just to pump some adrenaline into the veins. Anyway, Colton, I'm curious about Prime Protocol. That's what we're here to talk about. Give me a real high level on what this is, because I'm looking at this and you got a lot of assets listed here, a lot of different networks they're on. I want the high level for people who maybe haven't encountered this before.
Sure. So the high level of Prime Protocol is we want you to be able to operate your entire portfolio from one protocol, regardless of what chain you're on. And so we allow you to supply liquidity from a variety of blockchains and a variety of assets. And then you can borrow against your collateral positions from any chain, regardless of where you deposited those assets. So the idea is it's sort of like a cross-chain Aave or Maker, and not just cross-chain in the sense that it's on multiple blockchains, but all of those deployments are talking to each other. So like you could deposit some assets on Arbitrum, you could borrow some assets on Avalanche, you could borrow some assets on Moonbeam and deposit some more assets on ETH. And then when your health factor is calculated, it looks at the aggregated value of everything. So all your assets on one side, all your liabilities on one side. So you can effectively, if you don't want to go over a bridge and you just want to borrow on chain A, but all your collateral is on chain B, it's a super clean UX where you don't have to move anything around. You just deposit right into the protocol and you receive your borrow immediately.
So the way that it sounds like you can actually have multiple positions that you're managing, which is kind of that dream ideal situation that a lot of people always say and a lot of people kind of quote. It's like you forget about what chain you're operating on. That's kind of like the dream goal, and that's like where we actually want to arrive. How does the protocol actually facilitate those managements of all those like actual positions? Because you're messaging to several different chains. Is there a latency between them? And I guess also just a little bit broader, how does that messaging also work?
Yeah, so we've built the protocol to minimize the latency and minimize the cost to the end user. When you do a deposit, there's only one message that's actually being sent. And the way we do that is we aggregate all of your account information in one place. And that way, when we need to make a liquidity calculation, like can you take out a withdrawal or can you take out a borrow, there's only one chain we need to message in order to get that decision for you. So let's take an example of your deposit, the example I gave earlier, where you're depositing on Arbitrum and you want to borrow on Avalanche. When you hit that deposit button on Arbitrum, what happens is your tokens are put into our smart contracts on Arbitrum, and there's a message that's sent over Axelar to Moonbeam, which we chose as our hub chain because it's very cheap and has decently fast finality. There is also a lot of other benefits for being in the Polkadot ecosystem, but you don't even need to be a Moonbeam user or know what Moonbeam is in order to use the app. Because let's say next you want to borrow on Avalanche, you can request that borrow on Avalanche. There's a message that's sent to Moonbeam. It checks all of your positions, makes sure that you're good for it, and then fires off a message back to Avalanche to release you the funds. And so what this means is like let's say you never want to touch ETH L1 because it's too expensive. The gas fees are too high. Everything's spiking with all of the Pepe trading. You don't actually have to pay any ETH gas fees or interact with the Ethereum blockchain at all in order to use Prime, even though it's a network that's featured as one of the networks in our protocol. And the other cool thing is, even if you've already deposited assets on ETH, you can still take out that borrow on Avalanche without having to hit ETH at all, because we've already recorded that deposit on another chain that's cheaper and faster. So you can get access to liquidity quicker without having to go over any sort of ETH bridge or message passing. So there is latency that is involved with those messages. That's unavoidable. And the latency depends on what chain the message is being sent from. So if you're sending from a chain like Avalanche, it's going to be pretty quick because they've got really fast block time and instant finality after each block is mined. For ETH or any L2s, it's going to be a little longer because we have to wait for finality on L1, which takes about 16 minutes. So if you're using an L2, the sequencer has to publish that message that has the event flag to L1, that gets mined in, and then your message is sent. So anytime you're interacting with like Arbitrum or in the future other L2s that we're going to support, it'll take a little bit longer. And that's the same reason why any sort of bridge is always going to take longer coming from an L2. It's because of the finality constraints. And we would rather prioritize safety of user funds and make sure that we're waiting for full finality rather than preemptively sending the message and taking a risk that a reorg happens and the user incurs some losses.
So maybe these questions come from my unfamiliarity with Moonbeam, but like I see here, you have XC dot and USDC dot WH. What does that mean?
So right now, so Moonbeam is a parachain on Polkadot, and one of the cool things that we'll be able to do in the future is add more parachains on Polkadot and use Polkadot's native cross-chain communication that's fully secured by the relay chain. So it'll be super fast, super cheap, and that's what Polkadot was designed for, was a ton of interoperable parachains with shared security. So XC dot is basically Polkadot tokens that are bridged from like the relay chain to Moonbeam using like an XC channel. So they're using Polkadot's cross-chain communication protocol that's native to Polkadot in order to get that dot over to Moonbeam, and it's represented in ERC20 form. So that's it's the same thing as regular dot token. Price is the same.
Gotcha.
Easily redeemable for regular Polkadot token.
USDC, and then the USDC WH, is that wormhole, I assume?
Yeah. There's not native USDC on Polkadot yet. That's coming really soon. And so once that's ready, we're going to add that market. And then if liquidity for USDC.WH decreases, we'll just deprecate it, encourage people to unwrap and move to the new market with the native token.
Yeah, this is cool. This is definitely something that like I just know in the past, especially because I use Arbitrum a lot and I've gotten used to like paying, 7 cents for a transaction. All of a sudden somebody on Uniswap and on like Ethereum net, and all of a sudden it's like $97 to swap something. And I'm like, this is insanity. So it's nice to see that you can kind of dance around some of those different chains to avoid some of that. I think this is really awesome. What's the outlook look like for like different assets? Like, how do you guys add the assets? Is that a governance decision? Is that a centralized decision? How do you decide?
So right now we don't have a token. So governance has not been decentralized. It's a multi-sig decision, and based on, we have to be comfortable with the risk that we're adding to the protocol with any token. So we make a determination based off of generally like gauntlet decisions that have been made for other money market protocols on the same chain that help inform our LTV decisions, our loan premium decisions. And we also set a limit for how much of the protocol's collateral base that token can comprise. So we ultimately decide which tokens we want to add. We decided to start out relatively conservatively. We just launched a couple days ago. And so we just wanted to support major tokens on each network, start out with major stable coins, and we're going to start adding new tokens pretty soon and new chains as well. But we just wanted to get everything on mainnet, get everything working, establish some trust, and then sort of experiment with which tokens are going to generate the most demand for users. And if we see a particular chain that's really flourishing, we can double down on that chain and add more tokens. Or if we think we need to expand to new ecosystems, we can prioritize that.
So I see that you guys are giving rates of actual return or yield on people when they actually deposit their assets. What are these yields actually being paid out in, and how do they vary? What are kind of the components that actually impact what they're being paid in?
Yep. So everything right now is real yield. We haven't turned on incentives yet. So what you're receiving, it's the same thing if you deposit into Compound or Aave, you're receiving the token that you deposited, and that's continuously compounded. That's an annualized rate, and it's added to your deposited balance. So over time, you'll see that balance go up. You can withdraw it at any time, assuming there's available liquidity. So the rates are determined by an interest rate curve. It's very similar to other protocols that have this money market setup, where it's dependent on utilization of the pool. And we have an optimal utilization point, very similar to the way Aave does it, where we say, okay, for this asset, we would like it to optimally be used 80% of the pool. And at that rate, the borrow will be paying 5%. And then if utilization goes higher than that, their interest rates can get pretty high. And that's to encourage more people to deposit or people to repay their loans. And that makes sure that there's always some available liquidity left over for people to either perform a liquidation or to withdraw or to borrow more if they really have high demand for an asset. And so that's how the rates are determined. Obviously, the borrower rate will be higher than the supplier rate, because if you're utilizing half the pool, then you're basically splitting interest coming from like 50 borrowers amongst 100 depositors, if that makes sense. We did receive a grant from Moonbeam. So we will have some incentives that we'll be able to deploy on there. And in the future, maybe there will be more incentives we'll be able to offer as well that we haven't announced yet.
Incentives are great to bring in some actual degens out here to leverage. I think that just, I mean, from the obvious UX perspective, it is superior to be able to manage all your positions in one convenient location. But incentives are powerful instrument to get people to rotate over to a specific lending option.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, our goal is to not only add incentives, but also add real utility. So these real yields are as high as possible too. And part of that will be our strategy for which assets we add, trying to add different like looping opportunities as well, and making sure that we're on chains that are facilitating opportunities for people to do all sorts of different kinds of interest rate arbitrage.
One of the other cool things I noticed is it looks like you guys have a built-in like liquidation market.
Yeah.
I don't see any data there yet, but is that like a sign of things to come? You're going to have like a user interface for people to do the liquidations?
Yeah. So the data, the reason why it's not showing anything if you go to the liquidation page is because there's no liquidations available right now. And so we're thinking about maybe adding something where it shows liquidatable soon. But right now we're just showing available liquidations. So if you go there and there is a liquidation that's available to be done, it'll provide a really clean UI for you to see how profitable that liquidation will be, what asset you need to pay, what chain it needs to be on. And yeah, I think it'll be pretty popular. The incentives are pretty good. So I think they'll get snapped up pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's the first time I've seen like kind of an all-in-one interface for that. It'd be interesting to see how people can come in and like deal with the queue of liquidations there. I'll have to keep eyes on that whenever the market's in turmoil.
Like yeah, if the market's in turmoil, definitely check it out. I think we offer some of the best incentives in the market for the liquidators to make sure that everything is smooth and efficient. Obviously, it's dependent on the asset risk. So if you're receiving a stable coin, you'll get like a few percent like immediately. If you're liquidating something more volatile, you could get a bigger incentive, because we want to make sure that even if you liquidate an asset that's going down in value, you'll still be able to sell it for pretty solid profit.
Do you guys view there being an expansion of like the cross-chain services you guys are providing? Right now, I see how it's being that brokerage experience,
Mhm.
but I can see that there being like a multiplicative effect with the tech stack that you guys have built. Is there
Yep.
any, I guess, like longer term vision to expand the services that Prime actually offers beyond just this brokerage-like experience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our goal is to be a one-stop shop. So right now we're offering pretty basic money markets and a liquidity protocol. But in the future, we want to offer any sort of tooling for people to take on the kinds of positions or exposure they want, and really have all of their portfolio in one place. So that includes widening the collateral base and potentially also offering other services on top of the borrowing that allows users to, perhaps take an under collateralized position. You would have to do that within the walls of your protocol, similar to the way like a perps market works or an options market works. So we've definitely got aspirations to expand basically vertically along the stack. So we're covering multiple primitives, and also horizontally within the crypto ecosystem to cover more chains and more assets. I think there is tons of utility, especially for the message passing and routing system that we've built for building on top of our liquidation system. There's a lot of potential here for expansion of services, and we definitely have some planned.
Interesting. Can you drop some of the alpha on those services that you guys are planning, or too
Well,
early,
I
too
think
soon?
I just hinted at some,
Okay.
but the
Okay.
I think what it's going to be a little bit more of a ways off, because we still will have to go through audits with all of it, make sure
For
everything
sure.
is built and in a way that's, using the capital most efficiently. But ultimately, it seems like there are a few different primitives in DeFi. There's borrowing, there's swapping, and there's derivatives. And derivatives come in the forms of either perps or option vaults right now.
Yeah.
And then there are some nuances to all of that, like how is the liquidity supplied to trading protocols? Is that concentrated or not concentrated? I think for Prime right now, what we're focused on are all of those primitives that require collateralization, and we want to make that process as efficient as possible for the user. And so the first step is what we've done now, which is allow the user to collateralize everything across chains. And
Mhm.
then the next step is, how can we make usage of that collateral as efficient as possible for the user to take on a position or get exposure, and really get the desired amount of leverage, while also making sure that things are safe for all of the liquidity providers.
That's cool. That's I mean, it's like you see in a lot of centralized exchanges, part of the reason they're so popular is because they do that um what the hell's the word for it?
Cross margining.
Cross margin. Yeah, yeah. So there's like
Yep.
isolated and cross margin. Um it's interesting that we're starting to see a lot of these like self custodial options come out with things like that. So you guys really are I like the approach here with the borrowing and lending, and then it's like you kind of see how it works on the different networks, and then taking it to that next step of the cross margin. I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back. You might have explained this, but I am just curious. On the LTV side, you guys have different ratios for different um, assets. How do you define those? Like some of them are higher than others. Is that just based on the amount that's been supplied?
LTV ratios are different based on the chain that you're on. So if you're on a chain with less liquidity, then the LTV ratio might be slightly lower. If you're on a chain that has slightly higher rate, like latency, the LTV might be slightly lower. And if you have an asset that has higher risk, the LTV might be lower. So like if you go on the protocol now and you're looking at LTV ratios, some of the best LTV ratios are on Avalanche, Arbitrum, and ETH, because those have more liquidity. Whereas on Moonbeam, since the liquidity is a little bit lower, those LTV ratios are lower. And because there was some concern recently around USDT in the market, that's currently set to an LTV ratio of 0%, which means that we're allowing borrowing and lending, but it's not counting as collateral for your portfolio.
With the vision of the protocol kind of in mind, I know you guys are building. It's pretty obvious you're building in this cross chain, this omni chain fashion. Do you believe and do you generally see the direction of the like blockchain and crypto community just going in this cross chain vein, where there's just going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of chains, and eventually you guys are being that warehouse that supports essentially all of them? Do you see that being kind of the play that ends up unfolding at scale for the industry?
Yes and no. So I think that like ETH L1 is not scalable. You're going to need multiple L2s and L1s in order to scale crypto at large. I don't necessarily believe you're going to end up with like hundreds or thousands of different blockchains, because that would result in too much fragmented liquidity. And we're doing as much as we can to help solve that by allowing people to cross margin. But I think, there are only, at least for these basic financial primitives, I think you'll see a few app chains or a few L1s and L2, or a few like L1s and L2s that are going to emerge as dominant and provide basically the best versions of those primitives, and people will flock to those with liquidity. But because you're still going to have multiple L1s and L2s, even if most of the liquidity ends up being concentrated on 20 different rollups and chains, there's still a huge need for this cross margining between those dominant players. So I definitely think that there is sort of a liquidity effect where you will see a few dominant players come out, but there are going to be multiple of them. And so I think there is sort of a middle ground where there's not going to be, like, you might see an explosion of a ton of new chains over the next few years, sort of like we saw an L1 boom recently. Maybe we'll continue to see more of an L2 boom. But I think over time, some of those are going to die off and some will be sort of crowned as the winners in the battle for amounts of liquidity you can have, and the quality of the apps on your chain. And once
Yeah.
that happens, there's going to be a need for people like us to provide protocols and services that allow people to easily use all of those. Because I built this because I was using apps on a ton of different chains and
Yeah.
didn't have a great way to manage my entire portfolio between them.
That's the reality of a crypto user and a crypto experience right now. And I think that this conversation is really interesting. Just looking back into the history of back in the day when I was in like junior high, when the industry was actually called distributed ledger technology, and that was like the hot word. Back in those times when Ethereum made that cutting edge entrance into the space, was because they programmatically built this composable layer where you could actually program on top of a blockchain. But prior to that, there were a whole bunch of offshoots to Bitcoin. There were this chain with Bitcoin that had basically faster finality, or it had some sort of like tech innovation on the underlying stack. So I think we're
Yeah.
seeing that kind of replay out, and we're seeing that play out now at the layer ones, and we're seeing that actually kind of happen right now, where one chain has the speed of light of DeFi, and another chain has inherent better UI UX for onboarding, or whatever it may be. It's really interesting to be seeing that at scale and seeing how you guys are essentially just building in this modular way, integrating and just kind of hedging your bets in a way, in terms of just allocating where the resources actually need to be in terms of integrating networks. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you'll see more applications like us continue to pop up. They might be providing different primitives or different services, but there's definitely a desire to just people want to use DeFi. They don't want to use like a specific chain. And they want to have access to the best applications across all of them in as seamless a manner as possible.
So I just connected my wallet here, and sadly, I have 0 points.
You've been buying too many meme
This
coins, man.
I can show you
green.
my screen with some points on it. I have like a burner account that's been set up just for
Yeah,
testing.
well, and this might be related to Crypt in the comments here. Says, what are your intentions for a token on Prime Protocol? So I'm wondering if there's some relation between that and the stars that I can earn here.
I'm not allowed to talk about that. We haven't announced any plans for a token. Yeah, we haven't announced any plans for a token or airdrop. And we really want people to use the protocol if they find it useful and it's solving a problem for them. We do have a points program to track early adoption and make sure that we have some way of recording the loyalty of early users and participation in the protocol, because those people are with us from the beginning, and we do really appreciate our early community members. But in terms of the token question, we don't currently have any announced plans for a token or airdrop. Don't want to make any representations or promises surrounding that right now.
Certainly makes sense. With Gary Gensler out there in the audience right now, we have to be worried about the boogeyman coming out and popping out at us. Enough of being worried about the boogeyman. Colton, I would love to see your screen share. Just kind of give us a little bit of a run through what's going on over at Prime, just to see what how it works in action.
Sure. Let me find the
the share screen button should be at the bottom. Yeah.
So, all right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
It is very blurry for me, which might be my internet.
Well,
it's also quite blurry for me.
Okay. Right. So we might not have bandwidth for the stream.
All right. Let me try and do it on now the page is telling me it's not responsive.
Okay. I see your Wi-Fi network connection, so we might not be able to actually pull this through with the network connection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Evan, did we lose Evan? Oh no, we might have lost Evan in Ocean. Oh, okay, there he is.
I turned my video off thinking maybe it was my connection.
Oh, okay. I think
Colton, I am in a submarine. This is where I broadcast from, and it's sometimes the internet gets a bit spotty. So,
all right.
Did you manage to get Do Kwon on your submarine this week, or still MIA?
I've never even been considering going to get Do Kwon. I've been continuously sailing south towards Antarctica to research quantum. I don't know why you keep bringing up Do Kwon. It's kind of weird.
Oh yeah, he's just everywhere, and I just wonder. I figured that he would want to be in a submarine hiding around somewhere. I think that's just the ultimate goal for the guy.
Now we can see it. This looks pretty good.
Is this better?
No, it looks terrible. I was just kidding.
It's still blurry. It's still blurry, unfortunately.
I tried it rather than doing it on my monitor, doing it on my laptop, but
it might be just a bandwidth limitation thing. But if anyone is interested in checking out Prime, we will be dropping a link.
Joseph, share it on your screen and just have him walk through it.
Okay, sure. Let me do that. Alrighty. Hopefully my internet. You do know I live in not in a very civilized part of the world, so this is a risk that we're taking here. All right. Here we go. Here's the beauty itself. Is that better? Okay. Let me zoom in more here. Great. There we go. All right. What do we got going on here? I have some dust. And this is a small amount of dust that I have here in this account. And you can see that it actually is pulling in my assets from the Ethereum mainnet. It actually has them, but I have nothing on Moonbeam. I have some scraps on Avalanche. So overall, it just seems to me that this honestly just consolidates all the different positions and all the different assets you have across the chain. So you can, if you wanted to, make decisions on leveraging just from this one interface.
Right.
So first, did you just connect to MetaMask and it grabbed every network, or did you have to go and individually give it permissions?
I'm connected to Moonbeam. It says that I'm connected to Moonbeam. I don't know if you guys will see my MetaMask window pop up. No, it doesn't pop up because I'm sharing just the browser view. But MetaMask itself is connected to Moonbeam. It automatically connected to the RPC at Moonbeam. And now it's pulling all my assets from across all of them.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Regardless of the RPC you're on.
How does that happen? How did you do that? What magician work is that?
That's some wizardry from the Prime engineering team. But we're basically able to we've got RPCs that the front end is connecting to that are basically able to go and hit some view functions on each of the blockchains, and we're able to sort of serve up all the different assets across chains. So we've got some wizardry there going on, but we're able to show everything across all of your accounts, for all the transactions that have settled.
Is that a native tooling feature that Moonbeam offers, or is that actually just like I've never seen a team actually able to replicate that? That's actually kind of insane.
Yeah,
So if
that's just something we did on our end. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So and if I did wanted to come in here and actually provide liquidity, I could just deposit here, hit I understand because I totally read those agreements. Um,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, I
action
mean,
restrict.
if you're in the U.S. or a sanctioned country,
Oh no.
it's right now restricted for people. We're hoping that in the future there's a bit more clarity, so we can take off the IP whitelisting for U.S. people.
Gotcha. I may
But
be taking a trip to Amsterdam. Just real quick, a couple seconds. I might be taking a trip to Amsterdam to see if I can test this thing out. But
if you are an Amsterdam resident, you are allowed to use the protocol from Amsterdam.
Okay, that's
But
interesting. Okay.
yeah, U.S. people are currently blocked. But basically, the way it works is when you go to deposit, you'll be able to select the chain, select the token you want to deposit, and
Mhm.
then once you're at the final step of your deposit, it will it'll allow you to switch the RPC, and at that point, you're prompted to change the wallet to the chain you wanted. But we basically designed the UI here so that you can go through the whole process of selecting what action you want to do, and we prompt the RPC change at the very end, so you're not constantly switching back and forth between chains.
That's really convenient. And when you do submit a transaction, you're only confirming the transaction once, correct? You don't have to like confirm because there's like multiple transactions. I'm assuming there's multiple transactions happening on multiple different
Right.
chains.
So
You're just clicking once.
obviously, you'll have to hit an approval first if you're
Uh-huh.
depositing for the first time. That's like how any ERC20 token works.
Yeah.
But once you've hit that deposit, it's just one click. So if you deposited on Avalanche, all the other transactions are chained together, and you pay all the gas up front. The gas fee might look a little high at first, and that's because we overestimate, and then you get a refund once everything is finished. And so you basically put some gas in the tank. That's going to do your transaction on Avalanche, Moonbeam, whatever other chain you're receiving assets on. And then the relayer is going to refund you gas back to your wallet when all of that's completed.
Wow. Okay, so that's actually awesome. I mean, I'm assuming that if you're routing transactions over Ethereum, it's still going to be a pretty beefy,
Right now,
gas.
it's pretty beefy on ETH, and it looks like people have avoided using Ethereum so far, just over the past couple of days on mainnet, for that
Mhm.
reason. I think it'll make sense for people to use Ethereum once liquidity is a bit higher in the protocol, and then you can justify that ETH gas fee. But right now, it is beefy on ETH.
Yeah, right now it seems like the yields are pretty nice. I mean, getting a 3% yield here, that's not bad. I wonder what these yields are going to look like when you guys start running those incentives on the
Right.
network.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it'll definitely go up. And those yields were actually a lot higher yesterday. There was just more people started depositing liquidity. Um, and I'm expecting people will continue to add more. And once people figure out that there's like, especially on the Moonbeam markets, there's some pretty interesting arbitrages between other protocols on the same network where you can borrow cheap from Prime and supply elsewhere, and make a good spread. And as we add more assets on Arbitrum, I think that'll be the case there as well.
Ooh, this is a note that I'm taking down. I love me some nice little passive yield farming, where you're just going through looking for those arbitrage opportunities. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah,
That's some
yeah.
alpha that I had not even seen.
We've noticed that some of the bigger wallets using the protocol have been doing that, because all the yields right now are like lower than the other lending protocols on Moonbeam, and we're seeing other people also maybe they like I didn't have access to Moonbeam before. But now they're able to easily collateralize on Avalanche or Arbitrum and perform that. And I think there will be similar opportunities pop up on new chains as we expand to new ones as well.
I gotcha. And if I head over here to the actual stats location, is this stats for if I had an actual position? Yeah. So
yeah, and there are going to be more stats added up top soon. We're going to do TVL stat. It's the TVL's now above 500K, and it's still increasing at a good clip. And that's again without the incentives turned on yet. We just wanted to make sure everything was going smoothly on mainnet before those went live.
Makes sense. It makes sense that people are coming here. Just from a UX perspective, it already makes a lot of just the cross-chain minutia and having to feel like a router. It just makes it a lot easier. And I'm enjoying seeing that that products like this are actually starting to come up and actually starting to make that user experience just like gone essentially.
Yep. And yeah, so on this liquidations page, if there was a liquidation that you were able to do, you'd see basically cards pop up here, and they would tell you, here's how much you can pay to liquidate this person. Here's the asset that you would have to pay. Here's what you would receive. And it'll also show you the percentage profit based on current prices for executing that liquidation. So a percentage that you make just for paying back that borrow.
Cool. I'm curious
go for it.
From earlier when you started talking about, in the future, you guys want to do cross margin for potentially options and derivatives and all that fun stuff. Do you see yourselves as being the platform that is providing those, I guess, those derivatives, or would you be like basically just allowing the cross margin part of that, where somebody can deposit here and then maybe they're using like a ribbon finance vault or something on options? Just curious, like how do you see that? Is it like you guys are bringing the pieces together, or are you building some of those derivatives on your platform?
Well, step one is we are bringing the pieces together, but step two would be including everything under the same roof. So I think it'll have to be rolled out in phases, but longer term, we do want to be the one-stop shop for everything. I think some of the more bespoke products, it might make more sense to just make it as easy as possible for people to get liquidity and get over to those protocols. But for more generic, just margin trading type activity, that might make more sense to allow you to leverage all your collateral against within the Prime protocol.
Gotcha.
Cool. Joseph, what else you got?
The point system. How do people essentially accrue points? Is there like a set amount that people get if they start providing, depositing, leveraging, etc.?
Yep. So if you deposit $1 worth of value, you'll get 1 point over the course of a year. So that's like the rate at which you're accumulating points. If you leave that deposited without withdrawing anything for a week, then you'll start earning double the points. And if you leave it deposited for over 2 weeks, you'll start earning 3x the normal rate. So after a few weeks, then every dollar that you have deposited is earning you 3 points a year. Same thing goes for borrows. If you've borrowed $1 worth, you're earning 1 point a year, but that rate of points accumulation will increase the longer it's outstanding. And we did this because we wanted to make it easier for early users to get an advantage earning points over people who were joining later. And we also wanted people who supplied liquidity for longer to get more of an advantage rather than people who were transient, kind of in and out of the protocol.
So really smart way to reward the right type of user base.
Right. Yeah. Like we want to make sure that the people who we're recognizing through the points program are the people who were early and who were loyal. And so like everybody watching this is definitely early and has the potential to be high on the points leaderboard once that launches.
That's awesome. Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have, Evan. Evan, you got anything else?
Where should the fine people go to keep up with all this fun stuff, Colton?
You should definitely follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is prime_protocol. The app that you just saw, app.primeprotocol.xyz, is linked to on the Twitter. We've also got links to all of our other socials on Twitter. So I would head there, give us a follow. You can follow me. I also tweet quite a bit about the protocol. That's Colton F. Conley. Probably should have put that in my name here. Yeah, that's Twitter is the place where we always announce things first. And then I would encourage everybody to also join our Discord. We offer like 24-hour support for any issue you might be having. We can explain how to use the protocol. If you want to suggest improvements, we're very open to hearing suggestions and making sure that we give you support with whatever you're trying to do. Yeah, so that's also linked on the Twitter. I hope everybody joins, and would love to hear from everybody watching today.
That's exciting. All right. I think we're good to wrap this one up. Evan, are you good?
I'm good, sir. Colton, and we appreciate you coming on, man. I'm excited to see how this progresses. I think you guys have done a fabulous job with what you built so far.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see the directions that this goes. I know that in a year's time, this is going to be a crazy time, and just seeing the development happen and going live and launching during the bear market, I think this is the best time to be iterating and just seeing the natural growth of the protocol. So excited to see how that goes. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. You guys will have this recording available through Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter itself. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode of The Byte Show.